name is Nikki Prentice-Jones and I'm the Head of Enterprise at Action Hampshire Charity. And I'm really delighted to be joined today by the Reverend Canon Nick Ralph and Karen Jordan, who are part of the Good Neighbours Network Hub team. Today we're going to be talking about the Good Neighbours Network and the fantastic work that they do. And can I just start by asking what your role is, Nick, within the Good Neighbours Network?
I run the diocesan charity, the Council for Social Responsibility, which hosts the network. And I mainly am the interface with the primary funders and manage the staff overall, but the work is very much delivered by Karen and her team.
Karen, that brings us nicely to you and what you do.
Okay, well, I lead a small team of a network administrator, Nikki, and two network advisors, Lisa and Lisa. And in normal times, and to a certain extent now, we support over 120 groups across Hampshire who deliver medical transport, offer medical transport, shopping, prescription collection, befriending, coffee clubs, veterans groups, so a wide variety of activities that go on across Hampshire. And we support them through giving them advice, we troubleshoot for them, we offer them free insurance for their groups, training, online training, face-to-face training, again in normal times, and small grants. So it's back up for their governance. We work with the committees. It's basically we back them up and they feel that they're not alone when they come across a bit of trouble or a problem. They can give us a ring and we will support them. We also offer them free DBS checks, free DBS admin, and that's done online now for the groups. So it's quite a big package and it keeps us very busy.
Well, it first started in the late 70s with community care and people being moved out of institutions. And we know that in 1976, there were, I think, or was it 77, something like that, 6 groups. And there are now 123 groups with over 4,000 volunteers across Hampshire who last year did over 200,000 tasks.
Wow.
So it's quite an army of people from all sorts of areas and walks of life and doing all sorts of different tasks. The groups aren't all the same. They vary and they know best what is going on in their communities. But it's been going for over 40 years.
We have had a lot of calls and emails, certainly in the first 3 weeks of this lockdown, of concerned committee members wanting to ask about how do they do shopping, what do they do about when cash runs out, or how to get to the supermarkets and pick up shopping because it wasn't available in the early days. As we know, there was a lot of panic in the early days of this lockdown. Things have settled down somewhat, but we are having spikes of very busy times. And then in between those, there's a steady ongoing work that we do to support groups, answer their queries, check in with them, and just be there for them, really. That's so they can continue to do what they do. Currently there are around about 90 groups that are still offering support in their communities at present, and it's always at present because things are changing all the time, aren't they? But at present, many of those groups are offering reduced medical transport because the appointments were cancelled by the NHS. That's currently in a period of change again, and they'll be coming. A lot of our volunteers are over 70, so they themselves are either shielding or they are not able to volunteer because that is what the government guidelines say. But they are offering telephone befriending to their clients and to any other clients that might come on board. And many of them are out there shopping and doing prescription drops, just really, really busy and doing everything they can to support people in their communities. And we're there to support them to do that.
Yes.
Obviously, thousands and thousands of acts of kindness, but we've had a little bit of feedback here. So there was a gentleman who used to drive to the local woods to take his dogs out. He couldn't bend to pick up the doggy poo, and that's why he used to do that. That was his routine. Then he couldn't drive anymore because very recently his sight is deteriorated, and he was basically feeling it was pointless to carry on. The only thing that kept him going was the woods walk with his dogs. So he was extremely in a very bad place indeed. So I had a conversation with the chair about how we could manage that, in that how could we support that gentleman to get out. So we came up with a pragmatic solution, really, in that a volunteer would not actually be with him, but would be, say, across the road from him when he just goes for a short walk around the block with his dogs. And then that volunteer, poor volunteer, would have to be the poo monitor. That seemed to work because that gentleman now can get out, and that is small things like that make a massive difference to people's lives. As I said before, a lot of the groups are doing daily calls, check-ins. Some of them are doing weekly ones, but it varies. They're all independent groups and they have their own way of doing things. But one group is doing daily calls, and was actually before this crisis as general practice, and they were at a regular call to a lady, and they didn't get a response. When they looked into it, the lady had fallen in her bathroom, and so they called the emergency services, and that lady was sorted out and taken to hospital and is on the mend. So, there's a couple of examples of the big impact the Good Neighbours Group's volunteers actually have in their communities.
Many of the volunteers are over 70. Yeah. And we often find there are people in their 80s as well who are helping the old people who are 10 years younger than them. And it's as good for the volunteers as it is for the people they're helping. And rather than have that kind of, we do sometimes call them clients, but we try and avoid a hierarchy. People helping people. And it's about communities looking after one another in their own communities. And the more we can help people to do that, the better it'll be for everyone. And that was true before, but it's even more true now, and it's become much clearer, I think.
Absolutely. And we have situations where volunteers become clients for their, as I say, we don't like the word client, but it's the easiest one to use in a lot of circumstances. But a volunteer might become somebody who's being helped. And just recently I was told of somebody who was being helped who became a coordinator for a group. So it works both ways. That's one of the other things we do. We would come along, have a chat with that person, or a small core of people that would need to start up a committee or a steering group, and we would take them through the whole process from beginning to end with templates for policies and procedures, best practice, a constitution, all of those things we have in place. And we have experience of helping groups to do that. And then we would help them to set up. We would be there for them to answer all their queries, and then we're there to support them throughout the life of that group. That's what we're here for. That's what we do.
We're very specialist. I know the CVSs would do similar things as well around Hampshire, but we're proactive in that we'll identify areas where there are gaps and go and try and set up new groups there. You're right, sometimes people will approach us and we can help them with the formal process. But it's clear that during COVID, there's a step before that now where informal groups and in a road, people are getting WhatsApp groups together. And if it's neighbours just helping a neighbour they know down the road, that's fine. Once they're helping people they don't know, and once they're doing things like driving to healthcare appointments or shopping, they're in the realms of regulated activity, which requires a bit more care over the way it's managed and things like DBS checks to be undertaken. So we help, we're all about reducing the thresholds to volunteering and making it simpler and easier. So we obviously, we have lots of support we can give, but the aim is to help them take it on and be able to run it safely, locally themselves. And they know Mrs. Bloggs down the road. They know, if they don't know her, they know her house, or they'll recognise people, and they know best what is needed in their communities. But it does require some people to step forward, a few people to be a volunteer coordinator, and then a few more people to become volunteers, to be trained a little bit and supported, and then they can set up and offer a service. So it takes a bit of time to do the formal stuff, but there is a lot they can do informally still before they get to that stage. At the last count, Karen, it was something like 26,000, wasn't it? Individual
27, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. From our last lot of statistics, yeah.
Because it's 123 groups, it's quite hard to get consistent, reliable data, but we do our best every year to get something. But that's the closest we can get to it, really. we're funded by Hampshire Adults Health and Care and the clinical commission groups, the health commissioners in Hampshire. So within Hampshire, we have a free service.
Yeah.
Beyond Hampshire, we can't use Hampshire's money to fund other groups. So we don't at the moment have anything we can do really for them. But within Hampshire, they get it at no cost.
And just on that note, we, not so much now because obviously everybody's in crisis mode and immediate action mode, but before this all kicked in, we were having regular calls, several calls a week from people and groups outside of Hampshire who wanted to know how they could become part of the network. And as Nick says, we're only funded for Hampshire at present. So we were looking, and we still will be looking at how we might be able to expand outside of Hampshire, because there is a great need for what we can do.